Okay, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Keep your videos on, please. Kevin, Nestle, Emilyn, Abdul, Malavika, and Abhiram, please keep your videos on. Alright, so today we'll be learning about the selective attention, the factors affecting selective attention, and also the theories related to selective attention. Okay, in the previous class we just had an introduction to this. Which are the different types of attention that we saw? Which are the different
Selective and
types?
selective and sustained.
Selective and sustained. And also we discussed another type. What was that?
Divided.
Divided attention. Okay. So selective attention, please don't confuse with selective and sustained. The first part that we are dealing with is the selective attention. Okay, that is we are selecting certain stimuli from the rest of the stimuli around us to attend to. That is selective attention basically. And we'll see the theories first, then we'll go on to the factors affecting selective attention. The factors are pretty much easy. We are just giving names to the things that we have already noted and discussed. So we'll go for the theories first. I'm sharing the screen. Yeah, there are 3 theories mentioned here. Page number 95. Page number 95, we have 3 theories. One is filter theory. The other one is filter attenuation theory and multimode theory. Okay, so we'll start with the filter theory. Filter theory by Broadbent. Please note down in your lecture note, filter theory by Broadbent. Okay, Amal Roshan, read. Please read that portion.
Filter theory, no. Filter attention theory was developed by.
No. Just read the first one. Filter theory was developed by. First paragraph.
We can filter attention theory.
Not filter attenuation. Before that, there is a filter theory. Just before that.
Filter theory was developed by Broadbent 1956. According to this theory, many stimulus simultaneously under our receptors, creating a kind
Enter our receptors.
of bottleneck situation. Moving through the short-term memory systems, and the selective filter, which allows only one stimulus to pass through for higher levels of processing. Other stimuli are screened out at that moment of time. Thus, we became aware of only that stimulus which gets access to the selective filter. Then filter attention tree.
Okay, that's enough. Filter theory is enough. Okay. Now, according to this filter theory by Broadbent, what happens is our attentional system, it creates kind of bottleneck situation. Bottleneck situation means where is a bottleneck? This part. Okay. So if there is a big particle or a big thing here inside the bottle, will it be able to pass this bottleneck? By common sense, will it be able to pass the bottleneck? Yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. Now another situation where there are small particles. Okay, and particles of different sizes. Will all these things coming together be passed from this bottleneck to the outside area? If all these particles come together. Will they be able to pass?
No, ma'am.
No, it won't, isn't it? That is what filter theory says. So what happens is, we have our sensory register here. For us to attend to something, we need the sensation to occur first, isn't it? Yes? Or if we attend to something again, some sensation will be involved along with that. So sensory register is present here. And stimuli is coming from this side. Okay, there are different stimulus coming from this side, just imagine. So we have sensed most of that, and maybe these are passing the sensory register. Now we have a selective filter here. According to filter theory, I am talking about the filter theory, this is not the general case. All theorists won't agree to this concept, but according to filter theory by Broadbent, there is a selective filter present here. Okay, now what happens is, based on different factors, that factors we will be looking into in the section factors affecting selective attention. So maybe we'll take one factor, that is interest. Okay, so there are different stimulus coming, and we'll pick up only one stimulus which we are interested in, isn't it? So what happens is, that acts as a filter, that selective filter will be present here, and only this one passes, only this one grabs our attention, or we are more interested in only that stimulus, so only that one will pass through the selective filter, and the rest of the processing takes place here, or it goes into our short-term memory. That's what happens. Okay, it's a very simple theory. You just have to understand this mechanism. When stimulus comes, only the selected ones manage to pass through the filter. That's the concept. Okay, and that's why it is said to create a bottleneck situation. Bottleneck situation means all the elements in the bottle cannot pass through the bottleneck. That is the concept. Understood? Is that clear? Everyone? Yes. Okay. Now the thing is, please make this theory clear. It is based on this theory that the other modifications have come. For example, the next one is filter attenuation theory by Annie Treisman. Please write the next one. Filter attenuation theory. Filter attenuation. Not attention, it's attenuation. Attenuation means the the reduction or weakening of something. Attenuation. Filter attenuation theory by Treisman. This is a spelling given in the textbook, so we'll go with that. We have learned some other spelling. Okay, Annie Treisman was a person who proposed this theory, filter attenuation theory. Year 1962. The previous one was 1956. And this was a modification to Broadbent's filter theory. That's why it has such a name, filter attenuation theory. Okay. Yes, Meryl, can you read filter attenuation?
Filter attenuation theory was developed by Treisman by modifying Broadbent's theory. This theory proposes that the stimuli not getting access to the selected filter at a time, given moment of time, are not completely blocked. The filter only attenuates, weakens their strength. Thus, some stimuli manage to escape through the selective filter to reach higher level of processing. It is indicated that personally relevant stimuli can be noticed even at a very low level of sound. Such stimuli, even though fairly weak, may also generate response occasionally by slipping through the selective filter.
Okay. So what happens here is there is again the sensory register. Okay. And the ones that undergo this sensory processes will go further. And here, even though a filter kind of thing is present, it is an attenuator. Okay, attenuator means the incoming stimulus or the set of stimuli, they are not entirely blocked. In the previous theory, what was it? It was a filter, which means only selected elements can pass. Okay, the other ones are blocked there. But what happens here in the attenuator is, suppose this was the stimulus that we want to attend to, isn't it? That was the one who grabbed, or the one which grabbed our attention and our interest. So that would be there in the proper form. The other ones would pass, but in weakened form. Okay, so the attenuator is present to weaken the rest of the stimulus, and the one that we are really attending to, that would pass the attenuator in the usual quality. Okay, and finally it goes to our short-term memory. That's what happens. So the difference between filter theory and filter attenuation theory is that according to filter theory, many of the stimulus that is coming, or many of the information that is coming, that is blocked at the selective filter itself. Only a very few pass through the selective filter. But according to filter attenuation theory, several other stimulus manage to pass this filter or attenuator. The only thing is they are weakened in nature. Okay, that's all. So that is about the filter attenuation theory, and an example is given about the name being called. Suppose I'll give you an example. When you go for a function, maybe it's a wedding reception. Just imagine it's a wedding reception and there is loud music played in the background. Okay, so maybe most of the people, your relatives, your cousins, would be talking about some random things, isn't it? And you won't be understanding, or you won't be attending to each and every part of that. But suddenly when you and your best friend or your cousin is talking about something else, and you have your cousin's mom, your mom, and so many other aunties talking about something else. They are sitting next to you, but you're not listening to that, you're not attending to that. But suddenly you hear your name. If your name is there, that time you respond, isn't it? You turn and you ask, what did you gossip about me? Yes, that happens because that name is a very significant part for us. It is something that is a part of our own identity. So we'll be interested to know what they are talking about, especially if it is about us, or if it is about someone whom we are really interested in. Understood? So that is again because of this filter attenuation theory. That's the explanation given. Okay, the other elements of their talk or of their speech, that was again that passed through the filter, but again that was weakened. This was also passing through the attenuator, that was weakened, but since it was relevant for us, it was heard or it was attended to. Does it make sense? Okay. So if we were just explaining this based on filter theory, then we would say no, we cannot hear the name. But it is possible because it is an attenuator. That's why the Broadbent's theory was modified by Treisman. Okay, not all messages are blocked. That is the thing. Okay, so filter theory and filter attenuation theory. These are the two theories. Now next one is multi-mode theory. That's also a very easy theory, multi-mode theory by Johnston and Haynes. Okay. Next one, multi-mode theory. Multi-mode theory by Johnston and Haynes. Year 1978. Multi-mode theory by Johnston and Haynes. Yes, Malavika, can you read? Abhiram.
Multi-mode theory was developed by Johnston and Haynes in 1978. This theory believes that attention is a flexible system that allows selection of a stimulus over others at 3 stages. At stage 1, the sensory representations of stimuli are constructed. At stage 2, this semantic representations are constructed, and at stage 3, the sensory and semantic representations enter the consciousness. It also suggested that more processing requires more mental effort. When the messages are selected on the basis of stage 1 processing, the less mental effort is required than when the selection is based on the stage 3 processing.
Finished. Okay. So, according to this theory, as the name suggests, it's multi-mode theory. In the previous two theories, we had a rather horizontal or a lateral type, isn't it? The stimuli is going like this. But here, it happens in 3 phases or 3 stages. Hence the name multi-mode. In different modes, it happens in different modes. Okay. And the first one, as it's given in the text, it's sensory representation. First of all, we construct the sensory representation of a stimulus. Then we do the semantic representation. We construct the semantic representation. Semantic means? Does semantic mean? Related to meanings. It's related to the meaning of the stimulus. Okay, so first of all, it's just plain sensory. We just sense it. We create the sensory representation of the stimulus. Then we give a meaning to that. The semantic, we understand the meaning of that. Okay, and we create that meaning and keep. And in the third one, what happens is both of these processes are combined, and it becomes, it enters our consciousness. It enters our awareness. Okay, first of all, we make the sensory representation. Second, it is about the meaning making process, not the exact perception, but we give a label. We give a meaning to the stimulus. We construct that and keep. That's all. Then the third one, what happens is, this is the third stage. We combine both of these, and this comes into our, or this enters our awareness or consciousness. That's what happens. Okay. So again, just see the brackets. At stage 1, the sensory representations, example, visual images of stimuli are constructed. Like again, the previous class I told you about an example. When there is an animal in front of you, first of all, you sense it. The main thing is that you're seeing it from a distance. So you get the visual sensation alone, isn't it? So you create a picture of that in your mind. You just sense it. You have you are making use of the sensory modality called the visual sensation. You can see it. The vision is involved here. Okay. So you make a sensory representation of that, and in this case, it is the visual image. Okay. Now the next, what happens is semantic representation. See the semantic representations brackets. Stage 2, the semantic representation. Example, names of objects are constructed. Suppose if it is a dog, or if it is a cat, or if it is a lion, you give that label. Okay, to the stimulus you are giving a meaning. You are constructing that and keeping. Okay, that happens in the second mode, or the second stage, that is semantic representation. Now, third one, what happens is, we combine both of these. So you have the visual image of this, you have the name dog or cat or lion with you. You combine that and this enters your consciousness. That's when you really attend to it, and then that's when you perceive it actually, and then you respond to it. If you are scared of it, obviously you will run. Or you will hide. You'll try to escape from that situation. Or what will you do? If not escape, what will you do? We have learned that in the the basis of human behavior. Either we flee or fight or flight, isn't it? That's what is happening in multimode theory. So this doesn't mean that the whole processing takes place here. This is a theory of selective attention. Okay, attention itself is taking place in these three modes. Okay, and another thing is that this doesn't take the time as I explained to you. It happens in very less time, microseconds maybe. That's how we can give reactions and responses, isn't it? So the attention, the sensation, attention and the perception, everything should take place within a very few seconds. Then only we can fight or flight. We can decide to fight or flight. And then we can give the response or reaction also. Clear? So the three theories, one is filter theory, which creates a bottleneck situation, and there is a fixed filter. Not all messages can pass through that filter. That's the main content. Then filter attenuation theory, it's a slight modification of the filter theory. There is an attenuator present which weakens the stimulus coming from the environment, and then some of the messages or some of the information or some of the stimulus, they manage to pass through the attenuator or the filter. Okay, and it can enter our consciousness. Now the third one is multimode theory. According to this theory, as the name suggests, it happens, the selective attention happens in three modes. One is the first one is, we call that early selection. It takes less effort, just to sense it. Like when somebody touches you, when somebody hurts you physically, it's very easy to sense it. Not much effort is required. That's why it's given. The last line, just see the last line. When the messages are selected on the basis of stage 1 processing, we call them early selection. Less mental effort is required than when the selection is based on stage 3 processing, that is late selection. It's very difficult to combine, not very difficult, as compared to the basic sensation. It's a bit harder to combine these things and bring into our awareness and consciousness and then make decisions based on that, isn't it? That's why early selection is much easier than the late selection. More processing is required in late selection. Okay, and again, according to this theory, there are three phases or three stages. First one is sensory representation, construction, just the construction is done. Okay, second one also, semantic representation is constructed. In the third one, it is combined and it's brought to our awareness or consciousness. Clear?
Ma'am.
Yes, okay. Now we'll quickly see the factors affecting selective attention. Write the next heading, factors affecting selective attention. Factors affecting selective attention. Some of the factors we already discussed in the previous class. We are just trying to categorize those. Okay. And generally, according to our syllabus, they are categorized into external and internal. External factors and internal factors that influences or affects the selective attention. So we have external and also internal, two sets of factors. Devika, please read external.
External factors are related to the features of stimuli. Other things held constant, the size, the intensity, motion of stimuli appear to be important determinants of attention. Large, bright, and moving stimuli easily catch our attention. Stimuli which are novel and moderately complex also easily get into our focus. Studies indicate that human photographs are more likely to be attended to than the photographs of inanimate objects. Similarly, rhythmic auditory stimuli are more readily attended to than verbal narrations. Sudden and intense stimuli have a wonderful capacity to draw attention.
Okay. They are just a few examples mentioned about the external ones. So external factors and internal factors, they are basically divided or classified based on the characteristics or features of the stimulus and the individual. Okay, so external is related to the stimulus. External factors means it's related to the stimulus that is being attended to. And internal, it's related to the individual who is attending. Understood? Okay, now we'll see the external factors mentioned here. Other things held constant, the size, intensity and motion of stimuli appear to be important determinants of attention. So size means the larger ones. Like if I draw a few dots here and I draw a larger one, which one grabs your attention first? Obviously the larger one, this one, isn't it? Now think there are 32 students in a class, and most of them are more or less of the same height. Now a new student comes who is of 2 inches of greater height than them, taller than them. Obviously when they are standing in for the assembly, standing in a line for the assembly, that person would grab the attention, isn't it? So larger stimulus, they tend to grab the attention. Or when the selective attention happens, what is selective attention? We select some stimuli from the rest of the stimuli, isn't it? So what happens is the larger ones tend to, not always, but larger ones tend to grab our attention faster than the smaller ones. Okay, then so the size is one thing, and usually the larger ones tend to grab our attention. Now what else? Then brightness is related to the intensity. The ones with more brighter shades, like maybe for a wedding function, most of them have worn pastel shades. You know what pastel shades are, isn't it? Yeah, and the bride is wearing the brightest color, maybe a dark red, chili red or something like that. Obviously the bride would grab the attention. Why? Because it's a more intense color, it's more bright in nature, so obviously that would grab our attention. Then another factor is the motion. In the last class I told you an example. What was it? About something moving. What was it? Things that are moving grab our attention faster. I told you an example. Remember? Remember us discussing about the moving vehicles, the super bikes moving very fast on roads. Remember? Yes or no? Yes, okay. So faster moving objects tend to grab our attention than the slower ones. It's again relative. Okay, like depends on the rest of the things. Again, when I talked about the size, when I talked about the tallness. If all the people in the class are that much tall, obviously that person won't grab the attention. Depends on the comparison or the relative height or relative size of the stimulus. Then what else is given? Stimuli which are novel. Novel, that also, novelty is a fact. Novel means new. Remember the new child in the class, new student in the class, obviously that person will grab the attention. Then sudden stimulus, like when you are listening to a lecture, you hear a sound suddenly in the class. Obviously, you'll turn your heads towards that side, isn't it? That's because that stimulus was sudden, and but it should be intense also. Means it should be loud enough so that you can hear it. Otherwise, it won't grab your attention. So sudden and intense stimulus, they also tend to influence your selective attention. Sudden and intense stimulus. If you have noted, you can realize that all these factors are related to the stimulus itself, isn't it? That's why they are called external in nature. That's why I wrote stimuli here. All these factors are related to the stimulus itself. Then one more point given here is rhythmic auditory stimuli. Rather than the monotonous narration, the rhythms would grab our attention. It's related to the auditory sensation. So rhythmic auditory stimuli. Rhythmic auditory stimuli. They also grab our attention. Now all these factors were related to the stimulus itself. In internal factors are divided basically into two: motivational and cognitive. Motivational factors and cognitive factors. Okay, so factors affecting selective attention, they are divided into two: external and internal. External is related to the stimulus, internal is related to the individual. Now internal itself is divided into two. One is the motivational factors, the other one is cognitive factors. Motivational factors is related to our biological or social needs. Biological or social needs. Like when you are very much hungry, any picture of the food item that you like, or any talk about the food item, or the smell of food items from the canteen, that would easily grab your attention, isn't it? Yes, that's because of these internal factors. It's because of the motivational internal factors. Because hunger is one of your biological need which you have to satisfy very soon. Okay, that is one example. Then social needs, one example given here is: a student taking an examination is likely to focus on a teacher's instructions more than other students. Okay, now suppose I tell you that maybe you're very bored in the class, you're very bored about the topic or because of the lecture or the subject that you don't like. So you're very passive in the class, you're not listening properly, but suddenly I'm telling you, I'm going to give you a test. The test will be based on the 5 points that I'm going to tell you now, and it will be taken for your internal assessment. These marks would be taken for your internal assessment. Obviously your attention would increase, isn't it? you won't listen to the rest of the things happening, and obviously you have to value the marks. Otherwise you would be again passive, you will be sitting passive again in the class. But if you are valuing the marks, then that means you will listen, you will attend to this what I am going to say. That is because you have a social need there to get good marks or to get good internal assessment report. That is a social need for you. Okay, so that's the example given, and not much explanation is given. That's more than enough. Internal factors is related to the individual. One factor is, or one set of factors is the motivational factors. The other one is cognitive factors. In cognitive factors also we have 3, I think. Yes, interest, attitude, and preparatory set. Note down the names. Interest, then attitude, then preparatory set. Preparatory set. Interest we have already discussed. The ones that you are interested in, that will grab your attention. That is it. Then again, your attitude. Your own attitude depends on the things that you attend to. Suppose if you have a very negative attitude towards something, you are not very much interested towards that, obviously you won't listen, you won't attend to that. But if it's something that you like very much, or you have a very positive attitude towards that, obviously that will grab your attention. Okay. Then preparatory set, just see the last line. Preparatory set generates a mental state to act in a certain way and readiness of the individual to respond to one kind of stimuli and not to others. Which means you have a mental set and you have already prepared, or you have already set your mind like this, that this is this and that is that. Okay, so based on that also your selective attention differs. If you have already prepared yourself that you won't be listening to so and so things because you think it's useless, then obviously you won't be listening to that, you won't be attending to such information. Okay, so preparatory set depends on the general mental state as well as your own preparedness and your own readiness to attend to a stimulus. Okay, so these are the factors, the basic factors that are influencing or affecting selective attention. Now if you have any doubt, you can ask now itself, because in the next class we will be looking at sustained attention and also the factors that are affecting sustained attention. So you should not get confused with the two. Unfortunately, we don't have any theories for sustained attention, so it's much better. Most probably we'll be doing a seminar from this chapter, very small portions for each one of you, and I'll let you know the topics and dates. Okay, most probably from the perception part. Any doubt in today's topic? Anyone? No. Getting ready to come back to school? No. Okay, attendance please. Abhiram,
Present, ma'am.
Abhijit, present. Abhilash,
Present.
Amal Roshan, Bazuri, Kevin,
Present, ma'am.
Omar, Sanam. Sanam was here. Sandra, Sanjana, Nestle, Abdul, Abhinav, Alina Jason, Alina Varghese,
Present, ma'am.
Devika,
Present.
Emilyn,
Present, ma'am.
Eva,
Present, ma'am.
Malavika, Mary, Meryl,
Present, ma'am.
Rose, Shreya.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, that's it. Any doubt? No. Okay, we'll see you in the next class then. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.